Welcome back to Common Ground and Inside Look at Suffolk County. I'm your host, Steve Tompkins, Chief of External Affairs at the Suffolk County Sheriff's Department. Now, as you know, my guest today is Michelle Wu, who's running for City Council, for the Boston City Council citywide. And just before the break, I mentioned that we're going to talk to her about the bigger picture now politically. And Michelle, I'm very curious as to what you think about this political divide that you see, that we're seeing in Washington, and these folks not being able to compromise and come together to do what the people sent them down to do. What's your thoughts on that?
I think we're at a time in the country where we're facing some hard decisions. A lot of this seems to come from the financial situation of the United States. And when you get down to having to choose between priorities, people are very attached to one side or another when it's a hard choice like that, when something has to come at the expense of something else because we just don't have the ability to fund it all. A lot of this, I think, comes from the fact that our economic growth has been essentially stagnant. The pace of GDP growth has not been going up as fast as in previous eras. And I think a lot of this goes back to innovation, that we need to be turning towards an economy based on new ideas, based on new technologies, and the more we can prepare our students, our next generation, with the education to be able to get them into those jobs that will then start to drive economic growth for the country, then I think we'll be able to get to a point where we can start thinking about how do we do more together.
But see, and there lies part of the problem, is that we do need to make these changes. Society knows that we need to make these changes. I think our representatives know that we need to make these changes. But they just can't seem to sit at the table to figure out how that's going to get done. And so that gives me pause, and that makes me fearful that if they can't figure this out, the machine slows down, you know. And as a new person, if you're fortunate enough to win, do you think that you can raise your voice to a point where you can effectuate some change, clearly in collaboration with others, but do you think that you'll be able to reach across, I don't know if there's an aisle in the city council, but reach across, extend your hand, and bring people into your way of thinking while at the same time you cross over to their way of thinking and then find that common ground so they can get done what needs to get done?
Yeah, my philosophy is always that everyone should be heard and I can learn something from everyone. So I've really tried hard to have conversations with as wide a range of people as possible, get advice from as wide a range of people as possible, because when it comes down to it, there is some common ground in every situation. And you know, with any given person, you won't be on the same side of every issue. There are going to be times when you differ, some people more than others, but there's always, underneath that all, there should be a level of civility, of respect, of being able to talk about the issues in a reasonable, respectful way. And I think if we can start from that baseline and then bring in the community voices, bring in as many voices as possible, including some that are not typically heard, that's how we get to a place where we can actually make change. It's not just the elected officials being able to work things out by themselves. It's about engaging people, having them participate in what they believe in, and then if there's a huge swelling of support, the elected officials can't help but listen.
Talk to me about compromise. Where do you stand on compromise? What do you think about it?
I'm the oldest of 4 children, and it was always my responsibility to keep the house quiet and to keep the little ones from fighting and disturbing my parents. So I have learned from an early age that you try to find out what people care about, what they're interested in, understand where they're coming from, and then try to find a way to work together. Sometimes that involves thinking outside the box. Often that involves taking a long-term view of things. But if you keep the focus on, I'm trying to find a mutual solution that really, it's not just for me, it's not just to help what I want, and it's not all about, taking everything from your side and putting it over to this side, but how can we expand the pie? How can we make sure that everybody is benefiting? And if it's not possible, if it really is one thing over another, how can we still find a way to work together after that?
So in your family situation, you say that you're the caretaker or the legal guardian for your younger sister.
Yes.
Why is that? Why are you the legal guardian for your sister? And is that part of the kind of family compromise that you had to come to make sure that everybody is surviving and thriving?
Yeah. Family is extremely important to me and has been a driving force in my life since I was very, very little. About 6 years ago, my mom started to come down with some pretty serious mental health issues. It got to the point where I needed to leave my job in Boston, go back to Chicago where the family was, and take over raising my sisters, basically. I was lucky enough to be able to get into law school at Harvard and therefore come back to Boston and brought my sisters and my mom with me. So it is not necessarily a traditional family arrangement, but I think everybody that I've spoken to identifies with this sense of needing to pitch in from time to time. Everybody's experienced having to make sacrifices for family. And I think, again, it's about thinking big picture, thinking long term, thinking with everyone's interests in mind. What may be most convenient now for one member of the family is not going to help everyone else in the family. So how can we balance it such that, I am still able to go to law school, my younger sisters are still able to go to college and high school while we take care of my mom, while we get her the treatment that she needs, and kind of share responsibility, manage that all together, and find a way so that everybody's still able to move forward.
And what's so brilliant about that is that when folks are listening to you and you talk about the need to do that in your family situation and that family is important to you and then that you want to help other families, I think that there's a connective tissue there. I think there's a lot of lines that come together that shows that, that you're a caring person, that if you are fortunate enough to win this seat, that what you can do for your family, you're willing to give of yourself and give of your time to do for others. I think that's yeoman's work there. I think that you should be applauded for that because I'm not sure that a lot of people, when you talk about compromise and sacrifice, I'm not sure. I don't know how many people are willing to go the nth degree. I'm not trying to put you on a pedestal or anything like that, but when you talk about compromise and sacrifice, sometimes you really do have to give in a way that you never thought you would until you're into it.
Right. Well, thank you for the kind words. But I will say that I do think our city is founded on this idea of family, and our city is a caring city. Again, I've been going to neighborhood association meetings, civic association meetings, ward committee meetings, all across the city. In every single neighborhood, on any given night, there are multiple groups of people getting together, all volunteer, not for pay, just to talk about how they can make their community better. And it's this idea of feeling like you're part of a larger family. How can you pitch in so that your neighbor who lives down the street, who's part of your family in South Boston or West Roxbury or the South End, is able to move forward in their life, and the community as a whole is able to move forward. So I think Boston is a city of neighborhoods, and each neighborhood is really a family. The foundation of that is communities taking care of each other.
When you talk about that, the first thing that comes to my mind is Mayor Menino and being the urban mechanic. You worked for Mayor Menino, didn't you, for a while. Talk to me about the experience of working in City Hall, and what did you do while you were there?
I was on City Hall on a fellowship through the Rappaport program, which is an amazing resource for students in Boston. I started out in administration and finance, and then moved to the fifth floor where I worked on restaurant permitting and eventually on food trucks.
Talk to me about, like the food trucks are popping up all over the place. And I haven't actually visited one of the food trucks, but there seems to be like this headwind of more trucks coming about and people really enjoying that. What's the process of, when you worked at City Hall, what did you do to make this happen? And are you the one that's responsible for all of the trucks out there now?
Everything is a collection of efforts by a lot of people.
Right.
I was there when we launched the Food Truck Challenge, and this was a plan to bring 3 food trucks to Boston City Hall Plaza. So the plaza is very large, often very barren, but lots of people downtown are looking for affordable, healthy, interesting food options. So the idea is that we'd have a business plan competition to encourage entrepreneurs to submit their ideas, involve the public in the process, and then pick 3 winners. And I was really proud of being able to help shape that entire process, from ensuring that there was public participation through online voting. Each of the contestants was asked to make a little video introducing their truck, and you could vote online of which ones you thought should move on to the next round.
That's cool.
In the next round, there was a public taste test. So the finalists were asked to make just little samples of food to pass out in City Hall Plaza. and just as a test to see, would people come to this area for food if they knew that there was something good? And we had a line of hundreds of people down the plaza. It was incredible to see that. And so in the end, when the 3 winners were picked, it was Clover, Momo Goose, and Banh Mi. They vended there for that season, and every season since then, there have been trucks back in the same spots.
And have either one of those entities come out with more trucks, or doing a
All of
brick and
them
mortar
have.
thing, or have they grown, in other words?
Absolutely. So Clover and Momo Goose had already been vending in Kendall Square by MIT. And they were able to put more trucks in Boston with this new spot. Banh Mi was a complete startup, and I'm really proud of them. I think their food is great, they're innovative, and they not only expanded from 1 truck to, I believe, 3 trucks. They have multiple now in different locations across the city, but they're in the process of working on a brick and mortar restaurant.
That's great. Now, in a past life, you were a small business owner also. Talk
Yes.
to us about that. What did you do? What was your business?